This work is often called the pinnacle of Western painting. It is Las Meninas by Diego Velázquez, who built the golden age of Spanish art. The way the light holds, the unusual portraiture technique, and the multiple meanings of the work. It has inspired many painters, including Manet, who, along with Courbet, triggered the Impressionist movement. Painted at the height of Spain's golden age, this work perfectly reflects the splendor of the Habsburg court and the genius of Velázquez. Now, let's take a closer look at Las Meninas, one of the most studied works of art in history. First, about the characters in this painting. The princess in the center, the only one bathed in light, is Margarita, who was 5 years old at the time. Although she died young, she was the only daughter loved by King Philip IV. Velázquez is the bearded man on the left side of the canvas. He seems to be looking at us, the viewers of the painting, but he's probably painting a portrait while looking at the king and the queen, who are visible in the mirror. Portraits are usually of a single person. For example, Jan van Eyck's Margaret van Eyck is a solo portrait, and Manet, who was inspired by this work by Velázquez, also left a powerful self-portrait. Of course, there are solo portraits of King Philip IV, but in this work, he and his wife are depicted together within the painting. Those with a keen eye might notice that Van Eyck painted a similar work with figures reflected in the mirror, and Velázquez may have seen this piece. Velázquez was such a genius that he became a court painter at just 24 years old. For example, his work, Old Woman Cooking Eggs. It's hard to believe he painted it when he was only 19. What immediately grabs your attention in Old Woman Cooking Eggs is its astonishing realism. From the wrinkles on the old woman's face and texture of the egg whites to the scene of the ceramic pot and the muted gleam of the metal mortar, every element is depicted with remarkable precision. He must have seen the works of Caravaggio, who was active 100 years before him, and the strong contrast between light and dark, and the outstanding ability to capture texture and the volume of object, which are characteristic of Caravaggio's paintings, testify to Velázquez's extraordinary talent. We'll take a deeper look into Caravaggio and Velázquez later. Like the case with Las Meninas, which he completed as the culmination of his later years. Velázquez often painted kings and other important figures, but in his early years, he painted a work that seemed to capture slices of everyday life. The Velázquez depicted in Las Meninas has a red cross on his chest, which is the insignia of the Order of Santiago, something that Velázquez desired. In many cases, such crosses were added by the king, but it is assumed that Velázquez himself painted this one. Velázquez lived during the era known as the Baroque period, which kicked off with Caravaggio and continued with artists like Rubens. Caravaggio was a real bad apple. He got into all sorts of violent incidents, and eventually he even committed murder. For instance, there's a record from 1604 saying he threw a plate at a waiter, simply because the artichoke were cooked in oil instead of butter. He was constantly on the run from various people, got thrown in jail multiple times, and between 1600 and 1606 alone, he locked up at least 11 different court cases. He finally ran out of steam and passed away in 1610 at just 38 years old. Despite all that, he was incredibly talented, especially when it came to still life painting. Rubens, on the other hand, was the complete opposite of the criminal Caravaggio. Not only was he a painter, he also served as a diplomat. Rubens actually knew Velázquez and had quite an influence on him. Now let's get back to the composition of Las Meninas. First off, this is the only Velázquez painting where a ceiling is actually depicted. He split the scene vertically to show a sense of spaciousness, and if you look up, you'll notice there are two paintings hanging there. Did you catch that? On the back wall, the big painting on the left is Rubens's Paris and Arcuni, while the one on the right is Jacob Jordan's Apple and Pen. Because of that luxurious open area at the top, we can really see how vast the room is. Inside the painting, the only person in the light is Margarita, who at the time was the only daughter of Philip IV. If you look closely, even Velázquez himself and the king and the queen reflected in the mirror aren't in the light. Also, check out Margarita in the center. She's actually holding something like a water pitcher or a flask. It might look like she's refusing whatever the maid on the left is offering her, but if you zoom in, you can see the way the light reflects on the object she's holding. And take a look at Velázquez's tulip. It's painted in a zigzag pattern with the paint just rightly dabbed on. If you look up close, you can really see the different brush techniques he used. Velázquez started his career as a painter in Seville. At the time, many artists in Seville were influenced by Caravaggio, and it's believed Velázquez also encountered and learned that style. In particular, Caravaggio's realistic depiction and use of light and shadow, chiaroscuro, had a strong impact on Velázquez's early works. One prime example is Christ in the House of Martha and Mary. This painting is one of Velázquez's early polygon masterpieces. In the foreground, there's a kitchen scene, while in the background, you can see Christ and Martha. You can clearly see Caravaggio's influence in the realistic portrayal of the foods and figures up front, and in the strong contrast between light and dark. Yet while Velázquez adopted Caravaggio's tenebrism, he employed a more delicate handling of light and shadow, creating his own serene and tranquil atmosphere. Another representative piece from Velázquez's early period is the water seller of Seville. An old man with a water jug is depicted pouring water for a boy. The arrangement of figures, the realistic details, and the contrast between the dark background and the brightly lit figures all show signs of Caravaggio's influence. However, Velázquez dialed back the dramatic flair typical of Caravaggio, going for a more natural and calm expression. The meticulous attention to detail, like the texture of the water jug and the figure's clothing, is also a hallmark of Velázquez's style. Velázquez was born in 1599 and flourished during what's known as Spain's Golden Age in the 17th century. As a court painter for King Philip IV, he produced numerous portraits of the royal family and the nobility. Goya, on the other hand, was born in 1746 and worked from the late 18th century into the early 19th century. He served as court painter to Charles III, Charles IV, and Ferdinand VII, navigating a tumultuous era. Goya produced many prints copying Velázquez's works, indicating that he closely studied Velázquez's paintings and wanted to master his techniques. For example, Goya created a print version of Velázquez's Las Meninas, showing not only his deep study of Velázquez, but also his own high level of skill in printmaking. Moreover, it's said that Goya's Charles IV of Spain and his family was influenced by the composition of Las Meninas. The way he includes a self-portrait in the background reflects Velázquez's impact on him. Although the two never met directly, Goya was able to study Velázquez's printing in the royal collection, learning from his methods and deepening his own art. It's believed Goya greatly respected Velázquez and drew substantial inspiration from his works. When talking about Velázquez, you simply can't ignore the presence of King Philip IV. 17th century Spain, under the Habsburg and ruled by Philip IV alongside Velázquez's career, was a time of absolute monarchy. Spain stood as a dominant European power, backed by enormous wealth, flowing from the New World. Philip IV trusted Velázquez deeply. He let Velázquez be the only one to paint his portraits, and even sent him on 2 trips to Italy to acquire works of art for the royal collection. In general, royal portraits often convey grandeur and commanding presence. However, for instance, in Velázquez's portrait of Philip IV, beyond just expressing the king's dignity and authority, there's also a glimpse of interior life and humanity. Even in the horseback self-portraits that maintain a stately atmosphere, you can detect a hint of uncertainty in his expression, perhaps a reflection of the fact that Spain was already in decline during Philip IV's reign. Another key figure when discussing Velázquez is Rubens. Their encounter dates back to 1628, when Rubens, at the time 51, visited Madrid as a diplomatic envoy, and Velázquez was 29. Already active as a court painter, Velázquez must have found meeting the highly esteemed Rubens from across Europe a huge inspiration. You can see Rubens' indirect influence on Velázquez in some of his works too. Here are 2 paintings. On the left, Rubens' exterior portrait of the Duke of Lerma from 1603, and on the right, Velázquez's extreme portrait of the Count Duke of Orleans. When you compare them side by side, don't you think the composition and use of color are quite similar? Every time I discover connections like this between artworks, I'm reminded how fascinating art can be. You can almost hear the heartbeat of nights charging through the Amsterdam night, a bold composition that seems to split the canvas in two, and the sharp light and shadow that holds the viewer in its grasp. This is a night watch, a masterpiece by the Dutch Golden Age master, Rembrandt. Yet behind this dazzling achievement lay a darkness in his life that was never truly rewarded, parting with loved ones and the burden of that. The love he shared with his wife Saskia, and the misfortunes that befell his family one after another, and his financial downfall. Why was he able to create paintings that continue to captivate us, despite enduring such hardships? Next time, Rembrandt and the Night Watch, where light and shadow intersect. We'll delve deep into the fervent drama of light depicted on the canvas and the personal anguish that lurks beneath it.